So once our speaker for tonight presents his insights, we'll open up for questions. Please keep your questions ready. You can ask the questions in Zoom in the Q&A section. I request you all to actively participate and make the best of this 1 hour session. Please feel comfortable to come online and ask your questions directly to our speaker. So without any further delay, coming to tonight's masterclass on product management career paths. Let me give an introduction to our distinguished and eminent speaker of tonight, Professor Pinkesh Shah. Professor Shah is a seasoned product executive with over 20 years of experience building successful products in startups as well as large global organizations. Most recently, he was the Global VP of Product at McAfee. Currently, he is the VP Product Management at Exabeam, US. Professor Shah is also the Senior Faculty and Director of Programs at the Institute of Product Leadership. A very warm welcome to you, Professor. We are thrilled to have you here with us tonight. Handing the session over to you.
Hey, thanks, Shama. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. If you want to give me the admin rights, I can turn the video on. Super. Hey, good evening and good morning for those of you who are joining on this side of the world from where I am in US. I know many of the participants, from what I was told, are from India and Southeast Asia. So certainly I hope you're having a lovely evening. And more importantly, I hope and pray that you and your loved ones are safe and doing well, given the situation that we're all living in. It's very important to ensure that we take care of ourselves and our loved ones. So the topic that I was asked to spend some time is one that I have spent 20 years now, playing different roles in product management, product design, product operations. I've been an entrepreneur. In fact, my first startup failed, so I can also talk a little bit about what not to do if some of you are interested in building the product management skill, but then applying that into starting your own venture. So happy to do that. I had a few slides, but again, what I'll try to do is to open it up for Q&A. And so Shama, instead of waiting till the end, if as and when questions come in, happy to answer them as they go along. And that way we can use the best, we can be more efficient with everybody's time and getting answered the questions that they really want to answer. Yeah, is that doable, Shama?
Definitely, Professor. Let's do that. We'll take the questions at the end of the session.
No, what I meant is we can take some questions along the way as well, if that's okay.
Sure. You let me know at your cue.
Yeah, super. Okay, so well, let's first introduce. I think Shama did a fantastic job by telling too many good things about me, but I can be more humble and tell you I'm an accidental product manager. I moved into product management when I was in engineering, accidentally. And since then, I've always been in this space. So my roots are coming from the engineering function. Most recently, I was the Global Vice President of Products at McAfee. Currently, I'm leading up a team and managing a product and design function at Exabeam, which is a security software startup in the Bay Area. I'm also an angel investor. I've invested in a few startups and actively contribute to them in fact, 3 of them are in Bangalore. This is something that I'm learning. I figured out a great way to be operationally involved without a whole lot of hard work is to kind of become an angel investor. So that's what I'm doing now, as well as a passion to give back, right? I teach at IIMs and ISB and IPL in India. And so that's a little bit about myself. Is there a way to maybe put a quick poll to see who's in the audience and kind of get me a little bit of a feel for who's in the audience, and then potentially I can then tweak my conversation to help based on that feedback.
Right, launching the first poll.
So the first question that should come up on your screen, if it hasn't already, is just the years of experience. Um, I'll tell you a little bit about this years of experience as a metric in a second, but I don't want to bias you first. Kind of let me know what the audience has. Okay, looks like the poll is showing that almost more than half of you are mid-career, 11 plus years of experience. Well, technically, 54 plus 17, so almost 70% of you are 5+ years of experience. A few of you are in your early career, 0 to 5, and a couple of you are in your late career at about 10% of you. Very good. This gives me, now here's the comment that I was going to make. Years of experience, fortunately or unfortunately, has no bearing. And so if you have a lot of years of experience, this is one message for you. Of what you've done in those years of experience is what's going to be more important than the number of years of experience, right? I've seen a lot of mentees who I have mentored over time, and somebody has 7 years of experience, has done more valuable work, more variety of work, more customer facing work than somebody who's got 15 years of experience, realistically 2 years, 1 year of experience repeated 15 times, right? And so take this with a grain of salt. If you are in a low bracket, you don't have a disadvantage. If you are in a high bracket, you also don't have a disadvantage. You need to play to your strength. And we'll talk a little bit about this as to how do you position yourself as you perhaps look at evolving and shifting the orbit, right? If at all you want to shift your orbit from where you are to what you want to do, how do you play to your strength? And obviously early career people, professionals will have a different strength. Mid and late career will have a different one, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Good to know. Is there a question that we can also ask in terms of where the participants kind of come from, right? Just to give me a flavor, is it more multinationals or what industry they kind of come from? Yeah, so this would be very useful for me as well to understand. I know a lot of conversations in India sometimes is centered around IT and software. But let me be the first one to dispel the myth. Product management is not a profession exclusively or just for IT. Yes, it is very popular in IT and software related space, but it certainly has been around before even IT adopted it, right? And it's certainly not restricted to one domain. It's in fact domain agnostic. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll have 9 tips to share today. And based on your questions, we can go into more detail. But one of the tips is, how do you balance the domain understanding versus the functional skills? And I think while domain is important, you want to be relevant to the company and the customer base that you're going to represent and champion. You also want to not be limited by the domain that you're working in. And it's absolutely possible. We've got many participants and alumni who I personally am still in touch with, even though they graduated a few years ago, where they moved from let's say classic Cisco to a Flipkart, right? From a enterprise networking domain to a pure e-commerce and retail. So this happens all the time. Or going from a dietitian to a software service. So this happens all the time. Okay, looks like as expected, predominantly a lot of you are from the IT space. No surprise again. We generally see that in Southeast Asia quite a bit. Okay, super. So now that we know who's who, let me kind of define, since the topic is about product management, it's always good to start with a definition in a structured way of understanding this, right? So product management is really 3 things. At the end of the day, you have to be able to answer 3 specific questions. And product management is a very decision-making role. It is a role that expects you to become a strategic decision maker. It is not pure execution, right? And I'll compare and contrast this with project management, which is a very popular role in India and in Southeast Asia for sure. It's popular everywhere, but a lot more popular there. And how you compare and contrast between project management skills and product management skills, right? But they're very different. Product management is expected to answer a lot of the why questions. And it also is important for you to understand that it's a decision-making role. It's an art and science of decision-making, right? So 3 important decisions. Can we build something? Can we build something that is, important enough that people are loving to buy, loving to use? In many cases, you may replace the word loving with dying, right? Can you build something that people are dying to buy, dying to use? And at the end of the day, in that process, can you be profitable? And profitable doesn't happen to be day one. In fact, many internet software companies, as you know, they keep on burning money for a long time before they become profitable. But how do you have a lens to be able to say, okay, here's where we're gonna, be eventually, profitable? And that's up to the management team on when and how much. But there has to be a business plan around it. It can't be a hobby business, right? Generally speaking, that's more of a hobby lifestyle business. But if it's a product, it has to scale. It has to scale to a number that is comfortable to the management team and that you see some line of sight. So can you build something that people really are loving and dying to buy and use? And eventually, can you achieve the management goals, whether it's the user growth or whether it's the growth of revenue or growth of profitability? And so if you really break this down, there are the 3 key words, feasibility, desirability, and viability. And as a product manager, your job is to be able to analyze all opportunities, all ideas, all, imaginative, innovation, and innovative things to map it back into say, can we answer these 3 questions? Of course, there's a lot of frameworks, there's a lot of skills that are necessary to be able to make that decision. But at the net of it, this is the role of a product manager. Now, product manager comes in different flavors, right? There's an inbound product manager, there's an outbound product manager, there's a data science and analytics driven product manager, there's a business strategy and finance driven product manager. So yes, they do come in several flavors, but at the core of it, this is what a end-to-end product manager ought to be capable of doing. Now, if you map this back into desirability, feasibility, and viability, the 3 questions, the 3 areas that we talked about, here's the key question. As you peel the onion further, that you need to be able to answer, that you need to be able to produce enough evidence through your research, through your analysis, through your empathetic way of understanding the customer's problem, to understanding the competition, and everything in between to be able to then answer these 3 questions, right? Or these 3 questions in these 3 areas. So that's at the crux of how a product management exploration really works. And best ideas, by the way, every idea is not going to become a feature in the product. And every product is not going to become a business, right? And so you have to be extremely filtering, extremely prioritizing, and judicious about where you place your bets. And that's where product management is in high demand, because the ability to do that is very rare. There are not that many great product managers in the system. In fact, last I checked, there's only about 80,000 product managers in all of India. Now, this is a very alarmingly low number. There's 1.2 million product managers in the rest of the world, only 80,000 in India. So this is a fairly fascinating, high growth, and yet rare role, because very few people have the skill sets to be able to do this, right? So now talking about skill sets, and breaking this down into kind of how you would look at this from the desirability, there's the big skill set of customer insighting. And all the skills that I'm mentioning here at a high level are really the core skills that you need to have as you move into a product role. And I'm using the word product manager as a role, not a title. So I'll make this distinction as I go along, but I just want to make sure that all of you are clear. Even if your title is not product manager or product management. And let's say you're an engineering manager, you are a delivery manager, you're an account manager, you are some other fancy title that you have, you may still be required to do product management as a function, as a role, right? So don't confuse title with role. What we're discussing here is much more broader than the title of product manager or product management, right? So that's desirability, that's feasibility. Of course, you need to have a lot of understanding of, agile and development processes in terms of building the right product with the right budget at the right time, with the right quality, with the right interface and design. There's a lot of stuff that has to go right for it to come and become meaningful. And so there's a lot of product planning part. And then obviously there's this whole market analysis, market reach out, routes to market. You may have a perfectly great product, but if you don't have a good positioning, a good messaging, good branding, good customer acquisition strategy, those products become hobbies in a lab because nobody's buying. Nobody's even aware of your product. And those who buy are not referring five more because of the value proposition is just not sticky. So how do you kind of manage a lot of that customer acquisition, retention, profitability, routes to market, go to market, sales enablement? If you're a B2B company, you probably have a sales force. Now, how do you enable that sales force is equally important for what we call a outbound product management skill. So that's three in a cluster. Now, if I further peel the onion and go a little deeper in expanding this, there are 25 skills that you see on the circle on the right. And I encourage you to download this graphic from the website. You can do a quick Google search and you'll find this graph. This could be your guiding light. This could be a great gap analysis of where you are and what is expected in terms of 5 categories. You see these 5 categories here: market analysis, strategic planning, product planning, go-to-market, sales enablement. And in each category, you have 5 different competencies. So total about 25 competencies that is expected of a global product manager, right? That's kind of how we hire. That's how hundreds and thousands of product managers are getting hired, right? They're going to look for this competency grid. And it's okay for you to not have all 25 at an expert level. It's absolutely okay. But knowing what you don't know and knowing where your gaps are is going to allow you to fill those quickly as you grow up into ladders. And as you grow up in the ladders of product management, you absolutely are expected to have a good understanding, if not an expertise, in every single one of them. So keep this as your kind of guiding light as you ask the question, hey, look, what do I need to really be able to demonstrate? And again, not just have the skills or claim the skills, which is what resume does, right? When I hire in India, especially, a lot of people put a lot of focus on resume, and I tell them, I think resume is necessary, but no longer sufficient. Resumes are great declaration of skills. I know this, I know that, I've done this, I've done that. It's a declaration. It's not a demonstration of skills. And so I always encourage people who are applying or who are internally even having this conversation with your management team from a career growth, put a portfolio together. Demonstrate the skill. If you say that you know prototyping, show me a prototype. If you say that you have enough finance skills to understand pricing and packaging, well, show me a cash flow analysis business model that you've created, even if it's for a fictitious product, even if it's for an existing company that you have analyzed. You need to show something. So demonstrable skills are a lot more important than declaration of skills, which is what resume is all about, right? And so again, going back to that core competencies, these are the kind of 25 core competencies that I would recommend. Now, I have 9 insights that I want to share rapid fire quickly. But before that, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions that you want to maybe open that up for them to ask, Shama, or if you want to ask on their behalf.
I was just going to the questions, Professor, and I think you're covering most of them, right? These are little basic ones, and I think as we go along with the presentation, there'll be more detailed question. I'll let you know.
Sounds good. Certainly stop and pause me as I'm
Although
not
we
able
could take one question that just popped up.
to.
As a technology consultant at a big firm from about 10 years now in the business of client service, having worked on different product management roles in bits and pieces without a PM title, how do I present my experience better for a transition to PM, SPM role at a top tech company? It's an anonymous attendee, so if you want to come forward, please do, and you can raise your hand and I can, unmute you.
Yeah, and I encourage you to ask questions. Look, I completely appreciate the need to be anonymous, but what we discuss here will remain here. It's like Vegas. What happens here stays here, right? And so nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to tell you it's a silly question or a bad question. There's no such thing as a bad question when it comes to career and when it comes to mentoring, right? My short answer, and I'll try to give you some more concrete guidance as I go along. One of my insights is around that as to how do you kind of grow into the product roles and what is expected as you grow into these roles. But my first immediate reaction is that I don't think you need a product management title for you to be able to crack into let's say a Microsoft or a Google or a Flipkart. Pick a dream company that you have in mind when you say technology company. Going from that Accenture or Deloitte or BCG or wherever it is that you are into one of those product companies, the most efficient way, there are always random ways and you may get lucky, but the most efficient, predictable way is to really build the skills, those 25 skills that we talked about, competencies that we talked about, and demonstrate that so that you are able to make a claim that, look, it doesn't matter. I was called a consultant before, but here's the kind of work that I have done that I feel I'm ready to take a product management role at Microsoft. And I think a lot of hiring managers would be very, very willing to look at the merit of what you've done, what you can do, and then make that call. Yes, certifications help. Yes, degrees and three-letter words help. But to me, and again, just being candid, I know I'm presenting on behalf of the Institute of Product Leadership, so I have to be politically careful and correct, but perhaps not. Just to be blunt, degrees, certifications are overrated in the context of product management. What is more important is your ability to, yes, if those programs and if those certificate and degree programs helped you to get to that better portfolio, by all means take it, right? But don't think that just because I pass a test at the end of a one-day workshop or a two-day workshop, and I hear a lot of these acronyms like ITIL and CSPO and PMP and CBAP and CLM, a lot of these acronyms, trust me, nobody gives a damn. If I am allowed to be direct and blunt, it's good to decorate your resume with some of those. If you really have extra time, money, and energy, do it. I'm not stopping you from doing it, but don't think magic is going to happen just because you have a three-letter word. Just don't think your resume is all of a sudden going to be shortlisted and you're going to be on the top of the heap for the hiring manager just because you have a three-letter word. It doesn't work that way at all, right? On the other hand, your portfolio is going to definitely push you up on the top. So my advice to that participant who anonymously asked the question is to build the portfolio, build the skill, build the portfolio, build the network. So 3 predictable steps. Network is also important, right? You don't want to be sending resumes into some bit bucket. It's an email address that we don't know who's going to look at it. And a lot of HR folks may not even know how to evaluate you, right? Because it's a new space. They're clueless as well. And so that doesn't make sense. Yes, you should do it, but don't, again, count on it. Instead, look and focus on specific companies, on specific people, leverage the network, leverage the coach, the mentors that you have, go through them. Right? And so leverage a system to be able to network yourself into it. Is the most predictable way of doing this, right? Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Professor. And please share your thoughts in the chat window. Should we take another question or do we proceed, Professor?
Yeah, absolutely. More
Okay.
questions are better.
Right. So the next question is from Virendra Jipe. Hi, Pinkesh. How should we go about demonstrating our PM skills?
How should you? So the best way to demonstrate skills is to actually do it. Look, a recent life situation that we all go through this. I was hiring for a photographer for a birthday party for my little one, and there are a bunch of people who applied. And the only question that really mattered to me, as I'm sure if you're hiring a photographer, that will matter to you, is show me a portfolio. Show me a portfolio of pictures you've taken so that I can assess whether you're a good photographer or not. It doesn't matter that you're a Harvard graduate. Yes, okay, 5 extra points because you're a Stanford graduate, Harvard graduate, maybe you're an MBA. Okay, that's great, but show me the portfolio. Now, one participant said, hey, look, I gotta be honest. I have not done this as I'm passionate about photography. I've not done a paid birthday party before, but I took some pictures of kids randomly running at the Memorial Park, which is about 6 miles away from where I am, and I want to show you. And the pictures were amazing, right? So what does that tell you from this analogy and the story? That you don't have to be a product manager to do product management portfolio work. Or you don't need permission from Zomato to say, I'm going to redesign the Zomato's app design and the web app flow, checkout flow, so that 10% more biryanis get sold in that Zomato screen. I'm going to put together a financial model for how cred should make more money by next year instead of bleeding money. I'm going to put together a market research plan, and I'm going to run a survey to figure out if Swiggy should get into its own high-tail restaurants with Swiggy titles on certain cities. You can do this. You don't need permission from anyone. The reason people don't do this is two. One is they over rely on certifications and resumes, right? Which I'm telling you, bad idea. And two, they don't have the skills. Yes, I want to do a survey, but do I understand the difference between conjoint analysis and cohort analysis so that when I bring that survey results back, I can analyze them and infer correctly? Yes, I want to do a prototyping, but do I understand empathy mapping technique? And do I understand user experience design process on how I should go about it? So that's why the steps are very simple. Build the skills, build the portfolio by applying those skills in industry projects that you have access to, projects that you can fictitiously make up, right? If you're passionate about an idea, we have one student this girl and this guy who are one team in one of the executive programs that I'm coaching, is building an amazing sugarcane. They call it Benny Jolla. Maybe I'm getting the name wrong, but it's basically between sugarcane juice and sugar, the molasses that comes in, which is high nutritious value, used as an alternative to sugar, is their business model. And they're both kind of working wherever they're working in corporate world. And this is their passionate startup idea. They've now built a production, semi-production. They've built a label, they've built a bottle, they've got a price, they've got a labeling, and they've built the product, right? Now, whether they will ever build that startup or not, we don't know. But the point is that's demonstration of skills. You've done something. However inaccurate that might be based on what you've learned, where you've learned it from, you need to be starting to build that skill. So that's the way I would approach it. And I don't think there's any limits. I don't think you need any permission. If you want to go volunteer at a startup, NASCOM 10,000 warehouse in Bangalore is an amazing opportunity based on whichever city you're in. I'm sure there are some startups, some entrepreneurial companies around it. Volunteer on a Saturday and Sunday. Don't ask for money. Just go show up and say, hey, look, I want to help. There you go. You have a portfolio. After 3 months, you will now you would have applied enough of your skills to a given problem, to a given company, to a given situation. And now that's your portfolio. So I don't think you need to really look hard and worry too much about which projects you will do. It doesn't matter. Go follow your passion in terms of the idea, but build the skills first. Build the skills, apply, build the portfolio, and at that point, you have something that is much, much more predictable, much, much easier for you to crack it. Yeah.
Thank you, Virendra, for that question. So we'll take this next question from Pushpendra. I have 12 years of product development experience and really interested to move to product management. And would MBA really be necessary? Your advice on that?
You know, a general management MBA is not necessary. In other words, uh, not only is it not necessary, I would go to the point of being slightly, if you allow me to be more candid, it is a waste. It is a waste. I know a lot of people think somehow MBA is this be all end all. And that's true. That's true for the 0 to 4 years of experience bracket, where MBA plays, especially from a prestigious place at a high brand, it makes a big difference, right? Because it's a great way to filter for the hiring manager. It's called lazy filtering, right? It's lazy filtering because, if if you're coming from ISB, you're already good. Doesn't matter what you learned there or not, because only very, very few people get selected out of thousands and thousands who will apply to even get it through the program, right? So it's a great way to filter. Now, as you cross 5+ years of experience, that really doesn't hold true. That really doesn't hold true. So do an MBA that is relevant to your space. If you want to do, let's say, you want to become a finance expert, you want to join JP Morgan Chase as a hedge fund analyst, for example. I am Ahmedabad. It would be a better place to do that MBA because they're known for their specialization, right? If you want to become a chief people officer of Accenture, right? Managing, I don't know, 100,000 people in India. Uh, Again, go to XLRI because they're known for their HR and specialization. So similarly, product is your focus. Look at IPL, specialization. So if you want to do something, do it in the specialization mode is my summary. Don't do general management stuff. Learning everything about everything is not really relevant. It's always good to know more. There's nothing wrong with knowing, but again, the ROI is just not that high. Especially when you have work, stopping that work for 2 years and doing a full-time program, again, not a good idea. The world is moving so fast, and you're losing that opportunity cost, not just the money for 2 years of not working, but also the ranking in your ladder of growth. You're kind of losing that as well. And so yes, you do catch up, but sometimes it's just not worth it. So the ROI for a full-time management program, pretty low for 5+ years of experience. Now, if you're 0 to 4, makes sense. I think it's a good option to quickly bring that skill in a fastest possible way and to get that jump, to get that break. So that would be my recommendation. Uh, get into some relevant MBA program. We look at some of the programs at UC Berkeley, at IPL, which are MBAs, but they're more relevant MBAs for product. Right? Or some other short duration certification programs, but again, more relevant and focused on a given area. Again, any program that does not allow you to build portfolio is again a big no-no. Learning theory in today's world, I understand 15 years ago, you don't have access to the Stanford professor. Now you do. It's called Coursera. It's called, Udemy and Udacity. I mean, it's called YouTube. Everything you ever wanted to learn in today's world is already available to you, accessible to you, and potentially even free, right? So the reason to go into an educational institution in today's world is not to get knowledge. That's available. That's accessible, which was not accessible before 15 years ago. Now it is. The reason to go is to apply that contextually in a problem with coaches and mentors who are now helping you, giving you that continuous loop feedback so that your skill gets built, right? Not just knowledge. And I'll talk about, in fact, let me jump to that tip since we're taking questions. I don't have to follow the order that I had, but I can share this little, tip number 7. since the question got popped up, and I'll let you read this, right? A very interesting quote from Paul Heckel, who's a great user experience designer. He says, "Look, everybody has an opinion, and everybody knows what they like, and they think that they're an expert on UI design or on UX design, right?" And that is true. We all feel that I know something, and I think this is where we have to kind of take a step back and say, well, hang on, do I know something, or do I have the skills to do something? Because there's a big difference. My wife reminded me of this very situation a few years ago where I'm a foodie, and I'm a food critic by self-appointed food critic, if you will. And so she makes this amazing dal. And I say, well, the dal is great, but, and then some, criticism comes in, salt is less or something. So being the good wife that she is, she takes the dal back into the kitchen, does something with it, brings it back, and now the food critic inside me can't help. So said, well, that's fixed, but. And so you see what's going on here. She is obviously a designer herself, and a wife of a smart wife of a product manager. So now she kind of gives me this response, which is very important. She said, why don't you go to the kitchen and fix it the way you would like it? An instant reaction in my mind is, no, 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 that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I think you're fine. I think this is good enough. What she just did in that split of a second is make me realize that while I may think I know how to evaluate a dal, I don't know how to fix it, which means I may have superficial knowledge, or so I think at least, but I don't have the skills. And I think this is very, very important, hence, that knowing is not the same as having the skill for any subject, any topic, right? Whether it's product management or whether it's cooking. And so it's actually very interesting if you look at the psychology of learning and how adults learn. Now, the kids learn differently, but how adults learn is 4 levels. You have awareness, which is the outermost shell of the sphere, right? And you can build awareness of any topic. You can learn something about blockchain, cryptocurrency, Hadoop, big data, machine learning. Pick a buzzword that you are fascinated by. You can read a few blogs, attend a few webinars, get into perhaps even some free Coursera course or YouTube videos. In a few hours, you'll have awareness. You'll at least have enough to understand what that topic is all about. The next level down is literacy, which is a little deeper. Now you've not only understood, and this is where certifications might help you. You've got literacy. You have the buzzwords. You have the vocabulary. You can frame sentences. You understand that cryptocurrency has different types of tokens and how mining works and so on and so forth. Still, no skills. Remember, you've not applied any of that into a real world context, into a real problem, in a real product, in a real in a real industry, or a real situation. And so skills comes much, much deeper as you go closer and closer inside the core of learning. Now, if you start repeatedly applying that in the context of something, you have now built skills, right? And that becomes your demonstrable portfolio, going back to our topic that we were discussing earlier. You can now understand that in this situation, I'm going to use this framework and I'm going to make decisions this way. But in that situation, which looks similar but is very different, I'm going to use a different technique. The ability for you to do that is when you get to that level, now you have real skills. You're not just knowledgeable about it, you have real skills around it, right? And so in some sense, that's kind of what the difference between knowing and skilling is all about. And then obviously the next level is expert. You are an expert at it. In your company, you're setting up hiring processes for that skill. Let's say it's product management. You are now a senior product leader and you're hiring others. You're setting up best practices on how product management should work. Or let's say if you're a user experience designer, if you're a data scientist, right? Doesn't matter which skill we're talking. You are setting the standard. In fact, you're going outside of your company and you're becoming a thought leader in that space. You're doing, open webinar and free coaching for others who want to help, right? So in some sense, many of us have been going through this journey in our own life, right? And so that's very important for all of you to also be cognizant of it, that knowing, going back to the main topic, knowing is not the same as skilling, right? And so when I say skill, I mean repeated applications of knowledge into a specific area. And now a mentor or a coach has also looked at it, right? Just doing alone is not enough. It's like learning swimming. Steve Kaplow, one of our faculty, made a very interesting comment, the other day, and I really liked the way he explained. He said, "Look, learning product and learning skill is like learning swimming, right? So learning swimming, it requires three things. It requires instructions. Hey, how do you move your hand at 45-degree angles? How much time do you take your breath? Body posture. All that is instructions. All that is frameworks, theory, best practices, all of that. Second, you need a swimming pool to practice that swimming, isn't it? Otherwise, what's the point? You may learn how to do swimming through theoretically, but if you don't have a way to practice that, it just becomes, awareness, like we said in the layers, right? So you need a swimming pool. But the third and the most important thing that people often forget is actually a dedicated coach, a dedicated mentor who watches you while you're swimming. That instructor, that faculty, that mentor, that coach, whatever names you want to give to that person. It could be a friend, uh, an expert friend, of course, not a friend who doesn't know swimming, but somebody who watches you and says, you're swimming, so that's great. You're able to go from point A to point B, but you're flapping too much. Perhaps you're bending your knees as opposed to bending from your thighs, and hence you're spending more energy. So you're getting exhausted even if by doing just 2 laps, where in the same time you could have done 6 laps of swimming. That feedback and that continuous, improvement is what builds amazing skills faster. So all three are very important. The theory is important, the structure, the best practices is important, but you also need an expert. You need an environment to practice that, and then you need an expert, who's dedicated to making you better at it, right? So that forms, the real creation of the skill. So I know I kind of went in a little longer to the question, but I hope that answered the question, and probably other questions that you may have had, others may have had as well.
Right. Taking a moment here, Professor, to thank the audience for their participation and great enthusiasm. We have plethora of questions coming in, and we'll try and take as many as possible. So I will take this next question from Karan Shukla. What is expected for a senior PM role and director PM roles? Also, is it possible for Professor Pinkesh to cover some case studies on monetization, both success and failure? Probably if you could help with some examples.
Yeah, it's a longer topic. Monetization has become the most important vector of innovation in today's world. And I say this because a lot of technology that you see today are not technologically superior products. There were same technology that was open source, perhaps, or was available 10 years ago. But the way they have connected, advanced monetization models like freemium, for example. 7 years ago, freemium was not even a word. By the way, all of you should feel good. The contribution of product management to the English language is adding a new word called freemium in the Oxford Dictionary that happened 7 years ago. And so these are models that did not exist before. Free forever. Can you imagine a product or a service given away forever, not for a 30-day trial? That's marketing gimmicks. That's marketing promotion. We've been doing marketing promotion, for 2000 years of human civilization, right? So nothing new in that. But this is a fundamentally different model. You look at LinkedIn, you look at Gmail, you look at Dropbox. These products are virally going fast and are growing into billions of dollars of valuation because they are amassing these customers through viral coefficient. But how would you get that viral coefficient? You start out with free, and it's free forever. So it's not a limited version of free. LinkedIn does not stop you from logging in on every Thursdays. It's not saying only every Wednesday LinkedIn is allowed for you. It's allowed 24/7, just like it's allowed for the paid customer. Now, the paid customer may want that extra edge on top of this amazing free product already. And that becomes a great monetization model, because if I've got 1 million users, and if I can convert 10% of them into paid through my experience, through my product stickiness, through my value proposition, right? All the things, remember we talked about. The product manager does three things. Can I build something that customers are dying to buy and loving to use and eventually kind of make money, right? So that dying to buy has to be important. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. You may give away the free product, but if it's not creating, value, it makes no sense. So I think monetization models of WhatsApp, for example, a company that never made a dollar, still not making a dollar, perhaps no immediate plans to make a dollar, was worth, not now, it was worth $18 billion. That's kind of the price that Facebook paid, right? And so this is mind-boggling. This would never happen in a previous decade or 20 years ago. And it takes a while before you get to $1 billion of valuation. Now, what is happening is hence the monetization models, the revenue models are where the innovation is, right? WhatsApp is not a technological revolution. I mean, sending messages, was there before, and I'm sure some of you who are engineers on this call can probably take a weekend and a Red Bull with some pizza, and you can probably create a WhatsApp, instantly in 2 days. So it's not about technology; it's about the market fit. It's about the design and the user experience of it. But more importantly, it's the monetization. And so there's a lot of case studies. In interest of time, we may not be able to get it here, but I would encourage you to look at revenue models. There are 14 different revenue models. Freemium is just one of them. There's captive models. There's pay-as-you-go models. There's obviously the asset model of sale. There's the lease model. There's a subscription model. And what is the difference between subscription model and leasing? Right? A lot of people think that they're both the same. They have a monthly fee, but they're very, very fundamentally different business model, revenue models. And so a lot of that, I can try and point you to a blog and some videos as well. Join the community. There are a lot of free resources on the community on productleadersforum.org. I don't know if somebody can put a link on this for everyone to join, or maybe you've already joined that community, but there's a lot of good collection of resources, articles, videos, completely free for anyone who's interested in this space of product. Done this as more of a outreach on productleadersforum.org. So I encourage you to take a look and search there as well.
We have a few raised hands here, Professor. I'll just call them out.
Sure.
Kumkum Das, please come forward and ask your question. Okay, I guess she's not available. Next would be Anupama Joshi. Anupama Joshi, please go ahead and ask your question. I've unmuted you.
Looks like they're shy.
No, they did raise their hands. So.
No, that's okay. Let me do this. Let me kind of go through a few insights and then maybe come back to some questions as they pile up and as Kumkum and others come back.
Sure.
I'll rapidly go through a few things. A lot of these things we've already discussed, right? In some sense, it will help you connect. And at least somebody also made a comment. I saw that, look, why don't we let all the 9 tips come out and then ask questions. I think it's fine. What I have is really a collection of practical advice for a lot of folks, who are looking at this from a different lens. And perhaps, I was confused. I'm an accidental product manager, like I said, 15 years ago. And I'm so glad that I had mentors and I'm so glad I had coaches who helped me to kind of understand and kind of get better at who I am. And I wish I had met them even before, sooner in my life. I would have been, in much better shape today. So I think
hi Pinkesh, hi Shama. Am I audible?
You are audible. Go ahead.
That would be Anupama.
Yes, I'm Anupama. I'm Anupama Joshi. Pinkesh, I have one question, which is related to business architect. So, is it possible to still pursue being business architect, being in product manager role?
Absolutely. See, the good thing about product management is, in fact, let me answer that question and try to do that with some tips as well. And so that way I can do both. I can kind of walk through some of the stuff from a tips for others, but also answer your question more directly, right? And by the way, this is the same wheel that we talked about, the 25 competencies. But what I'm doing now is I'm breaking this up into specific entry points within the world of product management, right? So some of you may start the entry point here, which is the product planning. And that's also called, in many companies, we call them product owner, right? In fact, in Agile, you have this specific term called product owner, which is nothing but really a technical product manager, somebody who sits with engineering, writes user stories, follows Scrum methodology to prioritize, to do acceptance testing, and ensure that we're building the right things the right way, in the right budget, with the right quality, right? So all of that is your sky blue, here, and especially the requirements management, personas and scenarios, right? So that's one area. The second one is your inbound product management, which is all of blue, right? And so in fact, your business architect, kind of role will kind of super focus on some of these areas here, right? What's the business model? How much money do we make? Who's our customer? Do I do buy, build, and partner, right? Do I want to build something? Do I partner with something? Do I package something in my solution? When I sell a car, I don't have to make my own tires. I have a choice of making my own tires, but I can buy somebody else's tire, embed it into my car, and sell a bigger package, right? Sell a bigger product called a car. So those are the choices that, one would have to. How big is the market? What segments do we want to focus on? An amazing case study that I encourage all of you to look at. Harvard is in fact writing a case study on this for an Indian drink called Slice. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this mango drink called Slice. It's not very, it's not a market leading product, fruity apparently, and some of the other drinks are market leaders in that mango drink beverage category. But Slice has done something amazing. They've taken a product that was a kind of kids product and turned it into a different segment for adults. And they got Katrina Kaif as their brand ambassador. And I don't know if you guys have seen their ads, their branding campaigns apparently has gotten award-winning reviews, and it actually has worked. So Katrina Kaif runs this called Am Sutra, right, which is this nice little drop by drop, mango juice falling on Katrina's lips. Now, if you like Katrina, and if Katrina likes Slice, the indirect connotation is you like Slice. And however silly this may appear to be to you on the surface, turns out every time that ad goes on air, every time that campaigns run, growth for Slice sales go 2x, 3x. As soon as the ad comes down, Slice sales, the Slice mango drink sales comes back to normal. This is very hard to achieve, right? To have a perfect equilibrium that as soon as I start the ad, it goes up. As soon as I bring it down, that's very, very difficult to achieve. And they did that. Now, and they did that with a different segment. Interestingly enough, it's a kids drink, but now focused on adults. So coming back to your question now, as a business architect, you can super specialize in one of these 5 categories. You still need to learn product management end to end. So it's like you may live in, I'm familiar with this a campus of IPL called Whitefield in Bangalore, right? So you may live in Whitefield, but you need to know the map of Bangalore and you need to know the map of India, right? So you need to know enough about product management on all 25, even though you super specialize in few areas as a business architect, as a BU head, a business unit head, as a business analyst perhaps, and so on and so forth, right? Does that make sense, Anupama? You're on mute. So the other related question that always comes up is this delta between product manager and product leader. And I want to make sure that everybody understands this is not just a choice of words. There is some intense difference in the way you look at your career, both from a product management perspective, but also product leadership perspective. And I think many of you, since I saw that about 70% of the audience here is 5+ years of experience, especially if you're 5+ years of experience, and especially if you're 15+, my recommendation is adopt the product management career path without running behind the product management title. you can still become a product leader. You don't have to become a product manager, right? And I'm spacing this out for you by even further defining what is a product leader, right? So product manager I've defined for you in the beginning of our conversation today. Let me define what is a product leader. And I'll build this up slowly and I'll let you read. Right? Hopefully this makes sense. Anyone, it doesn't matter. The key word is anyone. You could be an engineering manager, you could be a sales leader, you could be a marketing leader, you could be a business analyst, you could be a program manager. Anyone who leverages customer context, business context, and innovation context so that they can make better functional decision. Functional decision means if I'm in sales, I'll make better sales decisions. If I'm in support, I'll make better customer support decisions. If I'm in documentation and tech pops, I'll make better, documentation and instructional design decisions. If I'm in engineering, I'll become a VP of engineering. But the reason I'm becoming VP of engineering is not because of my engineering skills. It's because of my customer context, business context, innovation context. In a sense, you are a product leader. Even though your title is VP of engineering or SVP of engineering, you are actually a product leader, right? So this is a big difference that a lot of people don't understand, that you don't have to run behind product manager as a title on your business card. It's good. If you want that, great, get it. But not everyone needs to run behind that race. You still have to learn product management as a discipline, as a skill set, so that you can now become a product leader in your own zone. And I think this is very, very important to, as a segue to Anupama's question, that a lot of people who are in that 7+, 10+ years bracket, they ask this question, hey, look, do I reset my career completely, throw away what I have done for so many years? The answer is absolutely no. Do not do that, right? Unless you're super frustrated with your profession and you're just, you entered the wrong lane and you kept on running in the wrong lane for 10 years. Okay, exceptional cases, you may do a reset of your career. But for most of you, I don't recommend that. It's not necessary. The market will not even accept the parity and price, right? Because your cost in the market is a certain level because of your 10+ years of experience. Now, all of a sudden, you don't want to reset your career and start from the bottom. It just doesn't make sense. So for all of you, this is an important way to look at this as well. And again, this is not very commonly understood advice that is not very easily dispensed. So hence, I want to make sure I emphasize this for all of you, since I see a lot of you are in that 7+ years of bracket.
Thank you so much.
Super. So let's see, there was one other thing, and then I can take some more questions on the career path. This is, by the way, fascinating news that so we talked about role versus title, and I think we spent some time on this, so this should be straightforward. By the way, money is never a problem in product management. This is the last study, but I think this number is even higher than that now. For the same years of experience, if you put two people side by side from the same IIT Kharagpur, from the same, originally IIM Bangalore full-time program or whatever, right? Wherever they graduated from, the same two people, same years of experience, one is in product management role, one is, let's say, non-product management, the delta is anywhere from 40 to 100% difference in salary, right? It's just high in demand. And so because it's high in demand, it is extremely well paid, clearly, which is why a lot of people kind of want to get into this zone, and why not, right? Now, I'll skip a few of these, but this is an important one, which is, eventually a lot of product managers will become CEOs. And this is becoming a trend. It's an accelerated trend if you look at it. And obviously some examples that are familiar faces to all of you. In fact, the breaking news now is Satya is not just a CEO, he's became the chairman of Microsoft. The only CEO of Microsoft who has now also become the chairman of Microsoft, I think, after Bill Gates. And by the way, he was a product manager. Sundar Pichai was a product manager. Marissa Mayers was a product manager. Shantanu was a product manager. And so what you're finding is that a lot of the CEOs in today's world are all coming from product backgrounds. 15, 20 years ago, that was not the case. That was not the case. The CEOs were coming from one area, which was sales, right? And it was dominated by sales. That's no longer the case. Now, how do you see that path working for you, right? So this is a typical path that we always work with, and this is how we hire, this is how we coach our own teams when they have to move up, right? So you start with an associate product manager or a tech product manager, you kind of move up, you get into a senior PM, and then you start moving a lot more towards group of products, right? Where you're managing a portfolio, not just one product, but you're managing a portfolio. And so then you become senior director of PM, director, senior director, VP, and then finally your CPO, Chief Product Officer. This is a very popular title, by the way, everywhere, including India. One of our alumni just got offered this, and without naming him or the company, just out of just being sensitive to their data, the salary ranges are in the 90 lakhs to 1.3 crores, right, in India. So the average salary of a product manager is about 36 lakhs in India, the last I checked. And so these are fairly good indicators of the demand and the need for somebody who's a good product manager, right? Again, not just somebody who's entitled, somebody who's just certified by the three-letter word, but somebody who's really good in terms of their skills and their ability to get things done. And then eventually they all become, GMs, CEOs, right? And business unit heads, all of that. So that's a typical path, both from the operational side to the strategic side as you make that movement. And as you go from one product, one feature, all the way to a portfolio on how a PM career is going to look like. Now, many of you are going to make jumps, by the way. You don't have to go through this serially, right? So for example, if you're a startup guy, well, you may be a PM here and you'll straight go to a CEO because, you started your own company. So those kinds of jumps are obviously very, very normal and often seen as well. But typically, this is the path that most would follow. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah, I guess my tip number 8 is really look at this from a trends perspective. Look at this from what is happening around us. It's completely changing, right? So even if you had done, a lot of people tell me, well, I already have done my MBA. Why do I need something else? And my answer is, look, I have learned a lot of things in my life, but I'm not using it. And things have changed since what I have used back then. And so there's always this continuous learning model that you need to know, because the trends are different, the models are different, the business models are different, what's happening around us is very different. And so you need to reskill to become relevant in today's world, right? And that's kind of the key thing. If you are in this mindset that, hey, I learned whatever I learned, doesn't matter where you learned it from, but if I learned something many years ago, somehow I'm going to keep on reaping the benefit of that for the rest of my life, think again. I think each one of us, and that's including me, each one of us need to spend, the general rule of thumb is 10% of your wealth, of your annual income, right, back into your own growth, back into your own learning every year, right? So that's my best practices kind of formula that I want to share with all of you. And thousands of people do this, by the way, right? The formula is very simple. Whatever I earn, and I may earn 10 lakhs, I may earn 100 lakhs, 1 crore, doesn't matter who you are. Whatever you earn, take 10% out of that every year. And if you've not done it for a few years, well, then cumulatively add that up and bring it back into your own investment. Because if you don't invest in yourself, you're not going to be relevant in the context. And so build that cross-functional skills, because the world is changing. Here's my prediction. And in interest of time, I'm going to wrap this up now. I'm beyond my original time, so I'll take some questions. But here's my interesting, something for you to think about prediction for all of you. The object that you see on the screen, right, the car, everybody is familiar with the car, I'm sure, is going to be free. A few years from now, each one of you are going to get a free car. Now, sounds bizarre, right? You may say, hey, look, what is Pinkesh thinking? It's early morning and I haven't had my breakfast, so maybe I'm just delusional. And the answer is no. I may be delusional, but the answer is no. This is going to happen. It's already happening at a platform level, at a individual product level, right? You know, in US, there's this amazing store in San Jose and in many parts of California called Fry's Electronics. It's like your Chroma in India. And if you are ever in US next time, you should definitely pay a visit. If you've been in US, I'm sure you already know about this store. So Fry's Electronics had a very interesting promotion, and it ran amazingly well, created hundreds and thousands of dollars per day, so millions of dollars of revenue for HP. And the promotion was following: you buy a chewing gum, HP printer is for free. Let me repeat: if you buy a chewing gum, a normal 99 cents, Wrigley's chewing gum, an entire brand new printer, HP printer is for free, given to you, right? And people were bizarre. They were thinking, look, there was a typo, there was somebody has goofed up, and there was like, mad rush. Printer sold out within 2.5 days, all locations, every single store, everything sold out. And they continued the promotion for a long time. They realized that while giving away the printer seems suicidal because you're losing money, the ink that you're going to put into that printer for the remainder of 5 years of life, it's called total lifetime value of the customer, TLV, is going to be $639 because that ink is expensive and you can only put an HP ink in an HP printer. So if by giving away 20 bucks, I monetized, somebody asked the question about monetization. This is what we call a capture monetization model, right? You're able to monetize 600 without friction, no sales cost, right? And you're still making $639 worth of revenue where the margins are very high in the ink. So why sell the product? Why take the effort? You offer as an end-to-end service instead. You offer that as a value. At the end of the day, the customer cares about value, not the individual products. And so this car is going to develop what we call C-commerce, not e-commerce that all of you are very familiar with, but C-commerce, the car commerce. And some of those monetization vectors that you see in the graphic is right there for you to now connect the dots and say, why will Nissan or Toyota or Maruti in India will give away this car? Because I'm going to make money on all these other areas, add-ons to leverage my capability of the profits and still create a huge sensational surge in sales. This is the kind of stuff that a cross-functional product leader is going to have to be able to do and is expected to do, because you have enough understanding about the engineering, the technology, the finance, the marketing, and that's why it's cross-functional, but you're a specialist in product, right? So that's kind of what at the net of what the next 10 years look like, is why everybody's so excited globally, and why I think you should be excited about this zone, about this space, and see if it makes sense for you. So, so with that, my last slide to kind of give you a parting thought. Start managing experiences, end-to-end value. Stop managing projects. That's very limited. It's okay to do it for a few years, but if you've already done it, you will get into a stuck ceiling, right? You'll kind of get into this ceiling where you're not growing further. Second, build demonstrable assets. You need to have that coach, that mentor, that opportunity to be able to apply what you're learning. Learning is fine. You can learn from wherever, but you need to now have a system where you're applying that systematically. And you can do this on your own, by the way. You don't have to join a college. You don't have to go join an institution. The institution only makes it easier, predictable for you with a collection of things, but you can certainly do this on your own. And I strongly encourage that a lot of people do that. And third, reskill. You've got to be relevant. You've got to continuously invest in yourself. Otherwise, you will soon find a not so pleasant situation where it's what we call the 1/3 virus will strike you, right? It's not the corona that's more dangerous, in my opinion. It's the 1/3 virus. And the 1/3 virus works like this. In your company, somebody else is going to show up and tell your HR, tell your management team that I can do this guy's job with 1/3 the price, even though I have only 1/3 the experience. I'm available at 1/3 the price. And the company may say, you know what, that's good enough. And at that point, you will find yourself being stuck and obsolete a very, very unpleasant position to be in, right? So you gotta stay relevant, whatever it is, whether it's product management, whether it's something else that you're passionate about, but you need to stay relevant in the context of where you are. So with that, I'll kind of pause and see if there are any more questions that I can take.
Hopefully, yes, there are plenty of questions. I'm sorry, cut it. Yeah.
No, I was going to say just a quick pulse. I hope this was useful. You know, certainly put a comment. So I know that this was kind of expectedly addressing what you guys were looking for. But happy to take some questions. I know it's kind of late there for you guys. It's early morning Sunday for me, so I can spend a few more minutes. And happy to do a second session, perhaps you know, a few weeks into it. On a suggested topic that the audience cares for.
Sure, let's do that, Professor. For now, let's take a few questions on career path and transitions. I see a few repeated questions, and I'll just pick one of them, circling around the same topic. One is from Adarsh Iyer. Business analyst working in finance domain, have 4 years of experience. So how can I switch to product manager role? Should I go for MBA program? So the question from transition to engineering, project, and other profile and doing an MBA program is a question that has been asked a lot of times.
Yeah. So again, I wanna be blunt and direct, but I also want to be sensitive so that I'm not hurting somebody's feelings, right? And that's a tough balance. I realize that. I think doing a full-time MBA, in my personal view, is not a good idea. If you are in that 0 to 3 years bracket, and yes, it makes more sense, but if you kind of 5+, definitely not a good idea. Second, even if you are doing a full-time MBA, try to catch something that allows you to learn what you want to learn instead of going to a buffet, right? You know, look, if you know that you are looking for Italian food and you love pasta, I'm using this analogy because, by the way, I forgot to say the most important thing to say today, which is Happy Father's Day for all those fathers in this call. It is Father's Day here, and I can see that kids are cooking something for me in the kitchen, and so I'm getting hungry. So my analogy is a food analogy, hence. If you want Italian pasta, why would you go to a South Indian buffet, which also has Italian pasta in it? Very simple. It's a very simple, intuitive way to think about it. If I don't know what I want to eat, yes, buffet makes sense because you are now going to get exposed to, you know, all kinds of things, and maybe you'll find your passion for what you really like to eat, right? But if you know in your heart that I want to become something, I want to become a designer, I want to become a product manager, I want to become a data scientist or a data analyst, I want to become a financial hedge fund manager, I think then it doesn't make sense to waste time in a full-time MBA, right? Now, on the other hand, a weekend MBA makes sense because you're not stopping work, you're not stopping your growth, you're not stopping your corporate, you know, corpus as you kind of earn while you learn, and hopefully that weekend MBA is more specialized for you. It's more focused for you, right? So you're not learning everything about everything. You're not wasting time spending learning HR when you're never gonna be, you know, an HR manager in your life, right? So why learn and go through a bunch of things? It's good to know. It's good to know from a hobby. It's good to know from an extracurricular activity. But if you have limited time, limited resources, my recommendation is become a specialist. Don't try to become a generalist because the value of a generalist is very, very low in today's world. So that would be my candid advice to Sridhar. Sorry, was it Sridhar or I forgot who had asked the question, but hopefully you got. Hopefully
that was Adarsh. Yeah, Adarsh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll take this next question. I'm sorry, I just skipped that.
I'll take one question that I'm seeing
yes,
here.
Sure.
While you do that, you know, Romit had a good question that he's got 16 years of experience in core IT, just started as a PM, accidentally good. Well, you know, the accidents are all good. Many accidents are good accidents in life, so that's great. What should be my milestone to check my progress? Look, the good news is that you're always starting the path, and accidentally or not, you got the opportunity, so that's great. My recommendation is still to invest in yourself, in skilling yourself, in building that capability for two reasons. One, while you're lucky that you got what you got, you need to stay relevant to that role, right? Because otherwise people will say, well, hang on, we gave this chance to roam it, but not really high growth. Second possibility, you will not grow further, right? Even though you got the role, you're doing it intuitively. You're doing this ad hocly. You're doing this with kind of commonsensically, right? Which is fine for first few months, first few quarters. You need to be able to get to a point where now you're kind of getting into that senior director, VP, SVP level, and that can't happen through common sense. I mean, it can, but it will take a long time. And you're telling me you already have 16 years of experience. So without delivering the bad news to you, which is obvious to you, but still I don't want to be the bad guy delivering that news. You have limited shelf life. This is not a time for you to do trial and error in life. If you are past 7 years of experience, for all of you, not just 16, but if you're past 7, you may not realize that the most rare commodity in life for you is not money, it's time, right? And so you can't do trial and error with your career. If you are 0 to 5, I think you're allowed to take some wrong turns, take the wrong highway, turn around, come back. You have time. And hopefully you'll also learn from that adventure. But after 7 plus, I don't recommend that. And so the short answer is hence, your checkpoint is, hey, are you growing every 6 months? Are you getting promoted? Because if you're not getting promoted every 6 months, you're not, doing justice to yourself. And so if that would be a good benchmark for you to kind of hold yourself accountable to. Yeah, does that make sense, Roman?
Right. So we'll take this one last question, considering the time constraints, from Anubhav Singh. I have made a career move from IT to data science and now thinking of product management. Will it lead to a confusing profile? And please direct me in the right path.
Not at all. You will be in the most elite group of people within product management if you do this, right? And I mean it. I tell you why. I'll give you a scientific explanation for this as well. But short answer is, you are absolutely positioned to be a unique PM if you already have data science as your background, right? Now, let me give you the longer answer and hopefully a little bit more explanation on why I'm saying what I'm saying. 15 years ago, the flavors of product management were only 3: inbound, outbound. So inbound is all about the agile user experience design, bringing the market research back into the company, figuring out what to do, road mapping, right? All of that is your inbound product management. Remember, if you see the chart, the shades of blue is your inbound. And you have outbound, which is, you take the product outside of your company to the field, right? Go to market, positioning, messaging, branding, pricing, packaging, lots of decisions to be made. So that's your second flavor of the ice cream. The third was your business strategy and finance. Can you put together a 3-year vision and a strategy roadmap? Can you put together a financial model and so on and so forth, right? So those were the really 3 flavors. 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I would say, the 4th flavor came into the zone, which is very, very hot right now. And it's hot because the old product managers are not trained on data science because there was never a need for. Right now, the model is every product, especially if it's a digital product, is creating gobs and gobs of data. And nobody really knows how to analyze that data unless you have a good handle on data analysis, on applied data science. So a data science driven product management, data driven decision making product management is absolutely hot right now, right? And so if you already have data science understanding, learning product management would be the most kind of highly recommended path for you as well. In fact, the executive MBA program, I remember the board of studies, in University of Houston, as well as in the Institute of Product Leadership, I think 2 years ago, added a whole semester worth of data science, applied data science courses in the executive MBA for product leadership, because this is the need of the hour. Every single product manager at Swiggy has to now not only analyze how many biryanis have been sold and who's buying and where and why and how, but also predictively use data science as a feature in the product, right? So data science is not just for making better decisions. Data itself is becoming the feature in many products, including predictive analytics and smart water heaters. For example, we have an alumni who works at Bajaj, and he was telling me that his new product line that they're working on is smart water heater. And I asked myself, well, how can a water meter be smart? What would you do in a water heater, like a basic thing like a water heater, to make it smart? And he said, look, we're going to put a small little light, and the light will blink with a different LED color. If predictively we can find out, they're going to put a little chip with a built-in algorithm in the coil. So if the heating coil is going to go out, it's going to be bursted in next 48 hours, predictively they will tell me that your water heater is going to shut down or your coil is going to blow off in the next 48 hours, and you may have a cold shower. Welcome to smart water heater. So even though they're not an IT product, even though they're not a pure digital product, the data science element, the product management element, and by the way, that product is going to be sold for 40% more just by having this capability. So I think short answer is absolutely necessary. And by the way, the flip of it is all of you who are existing product managers or are wanting to get into product management, I encourage you to get into a little bit of applied data science understanding, right? Don't have to become a data scientist. That is not the expectation for you to write algorithms, to do coding, to learn Python. That is not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to understanding data science in the context of product management, in the context of business decision making. And I think that's a very crucial hot skill right now. Will remain that way for years to come.
Right. So that should sum up the Q&A here. In view of the time constraints, we will have to end the Q&A here, audience. Thank you so much for your participation. And for any further questions and the ones that we could not take, please scan the QR code on your screen to get an exclusive 30-minute session with our expert panel and clear all your doubts on transitioning to a product manager role. Thank you, Professor Shah, for delivering a brilliant session. Really great and thought-provoking insights. We have enjoyed having you here with us, and it's been a complete pleasure.
Happy to be there and wish you all the very best to all of you. Stay safe. Good luck.
Right. Thank you, audience, for joining in. It was great interacting with you all. Do not forget to register for the webinar on 23rd of June at 8 p.m. IST. With that note, I end tonight's session. Happy learning and stay skilled. Have a great night.